right, sir. Well, first of all, nice to meet you.
Hey, great to meet you too, Brad.
Thank you so much. All right, sir. For the benefit of the audience, can you tell everybody who you are, who you're working with, and what you're doing out here in Saipan?
Yeah, one, I'm enjoying the beautiful day, but two, my name is Brett Mietus. I'm the commander of Joint Region Marianas, originally from Virginia, a career naval flight officer by trade, and gosh, about I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, they told me I was going to have the opportunity to come out here and lead Joint Region Marianas, and so it's been awesome to get out. I think my first trip in the job was to come here to Saipan for Liberation Day on July 4th, which was just a great way to kind of get a baptism in the local culture, get a chance to meet people, just get a chance to go to local restaurants and enjoy all that Saipan is. So today we're having our quarterly CNMI stakeholders meeting, and so we get a chance to come in for the day. A little disappointed because we're in and out in one day. We were coming on the way over here, we're talking about how we enjoy it more when we get a chance to spend the night.
Well, so you've been on the job now for a little bit, and you got to come out here. At least you got a little bit of a breeze coming through here for this one today. But now that you've got your feet wet a little bit out here, sir, can you tell us a little bit about, maybe your first impressions on what's going on and how you see things moving along?
Yeah, the first impression is how important the partnership is between DoD and the local community. It's everything we do is with the local community in mind. But it's hard because there's so much interest in CNMI, the broader Marianas, to be able to understand what's happening and when. It takes that consistent communication to make sure that when someone says, I heard, they can quickly find out what the truth is and get to ground truth, because at the end of the day, we're going to do the absolute best we can to do things the right way. And so it's important for us to learn any moment that we're not doing things the right way. The other thing that's been really interesting to me to learn has been just the process for this. I didn't know how much work went into, it's a U.S. soil, U.S. territory. Hey, we want to build something here. We just don't show up one day with a bulldozer and start bulldozing stuff. All the environmental work that gets done to make sure that every rule and every regulation that's out there are rules and regulations that we follow. And even in there, as we were chatting, if we don't ever cut corners in anything. So that's been one of the things that's been really interesting for me, because I don't have a background doing this stuff, but it's been neat to watch how rigorous we are in applying every rule and every regulation to make sure we do it right.
Yeah, I was going to ask if, and you kind of touched on it, but like some of the unique challenges of working out here and working in such a bigger environment too. I mean, you said it's not just like mainland U.S., but it's a couple of different territories, and it's spread out pretty far.
Yeah, I think it's the challenges of working out here. I would say, just from a clarity perspective, as we engage with folks, one thing that's just very different is we know how much the land, the environment means to folks here. And so in all of our sessions, that's paramount in what we say and paramount in what we hear from other folks. The other thing that's just challenging is Department of War is a really big organization. And sometimes even within each of the services, there's different initiatives here in CNMI. And so the challenge for us is just making sure that we have all the good ideas kind of contained, that we understand crisply and cleanly what it is we're doing moving forward, just so we can set expectations here, not just today, but in the long term.
Well, and then when you're doing initiatives like any of the things that we're doing out here, there's a lot going on Tinian, and we're talking about some things on Saipan and Rota. And when you're working like in a regular base in the mainland or something, how often are you really engaging with state governors to go over these kind of things, and mayors from all the different municipalities? Yeah,
I only have one experience, and it's in the Pac Northwest when I used to work in Whidbey Island, Washington, when we would do things. But it was small compared to this. Like, it's one of the things that the amount of outreach, the amount of consistent outreach is really unique. And I think that just underscores the fact that we want to get this right, that it's not about just coming in, dumping a bunch of new military construction, operating, and then going away. It's that sustained long-term relationship, partnering with the people here to make sure that what we're doing is sustainable over time.
Well, we've seen a lot change in the last 10 years, maybe 15 years. But I'd say probably within the last 5 years, it seems like things are really picking up out here. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
I think that you'll hear sometimes people talk about the Davidson window and when China might take action in the Western Pacific. And I think what that did, you can have a lot of conversations about what the Davidson window is, whether it would happen or not. But I think that just helped remind and galvanize the U.S. about the importance of how we set up our defense posture here in the Western Pacific. And part of that is number one, defending U.S. territory, which is why we're here. And then number two is operating from U.S. territory. So for us, it just brought a certain level of seriousness that you've seen over the last 5 years of, God forbid, if something was to happen, how do we protect, how do we project power from? And that's the work that you see ongoing today.
Well, I remember a big obstacle initially was trying to get folks training over there in Tinian. Another one was then the divert project to get that even over the start line, or to the start line. Now you see those projects are humming along right now. So can you give us a little bit about the status of where we're at with the divert?
Yeah, with the divert right now, it's awesome. Every time I fly over the divert airfield there, I should say the divert airfield, and then also the northern airfield there in Tinian. So the actual construction at the airport there in Tinian is getting close to the end of, in 26 we'll be complete there. And the work up in the northern field there is just ongoing brush work. I don't have the exact date committed to memory, but it's progressing along. And that's just a neat thing too, because we're able to use Air Force and CB construction expertise to be able to do that, which lets us do it faster and cheaper. And you've also seen at Re4PAC, which it's a huge exercise that the Air Force expects to have every 2 years. That gives us an opportunity to build, but then to also quickly operate from, because it's easy to say, I want to bring a bunch of planes out from the continental United States, have them land here and go somewhere, have them land and take off. It's easy to say, it's harder to do. And so we're able to take all the work that we're doing and match it with exercises that let us work with the CNMI government to be able to make sure that we're doing things right and we're actually practicing using the capabilities that we're bringing to the islands.
You said a couple of things to follow on that are interesting, but you mentioned Re4PAC. Re4PAC was the biggest thing we've had here ever.
Oh yeah.
And it made a pretty big impact here. I know economically it was big for like a full month of actual business here.
Oh yeah.
And understand that that's every other year. Yesterday we heard like Coke North is going to happen, but it's not going to happen here.
Yeah.
But Valiant Shield is going to be quite a bit bigger next year.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see is Valiant Shield, Re4PAC, Valiant Shield, Re4PAC until something changes. And each one of those things is the amount of, and I also think, this is my own opinion, that Re4PAC will grow with other people wanting to participate in just that. And so I think you're going to see large exercises every year, using the new capabilities that we have and practicing in the area that we want to defend.
Well, it definitely made a difference for our VFW post.
Excellent, yeah.
We had some of the best business that we've had here in the last 2 years.
Awesome, and we're sensitive to that, and that's part of the work we want to do. Is it's not just about building, but it's about building and sustaining, and it's making sure that in the long term here that we have the right contracts in place to be able to, have local people help sustain everything from security to more, making sure the facilities are right, because we're not going to have a huge troop presence here, but we can't afford to arrive and have it take 2 weeks to a month to get things ready, right? And so part of the work is not just the building, but it's how we get those contracts in place for the sustainment, which should also provide long-term dollars here locally.
Yeah, and yesterday we heard a lot about some of those, the continued investment and the bigger footprint here, about some of the facilities in Rhoda, some of the facilities in Tinian to continue to develop, and then in Saipan here about the CBs. You mentioned CBs, that we've got some CBs here now that we're going to be able to work with.
No, and that's the interesting and exciting thing. So coming into the job, it's amazing how much things cost. And a lot of the things that were built, like an example in Guam is the glass breakwater, which guards the port there. That was all CB construction. Just to renovate that is $571 million post-Mile War. So if you had to actually do that without CB construction, it's just incredibly expensive. So every time we can use the Air Force Red Horse Group or our CBs, it's just faster. The construction is high, and as a taxpayer, it just costs a lot less.
One of the benefits the folks from Tinian have been getting for quite some time has been the IRT. People are able to see the military get out there, do their job. It counts as training, but to the benefit of the local community. Some of that's like paving projects and smaller community things like Comrel, but the bigger infrastructure things you guys have been able to do.
No, and I think for us, I kind of view it as there's the standard Department of War way, which is big and onerous and a lot of bureaucracy. And then there's these creative things that we can do to be able to partner with the community to do things faster and to just create those connections that are the connections we need over time.
We've had some folks on our show just the other day who were asking about that. Can we get the military to help us with this, with maybe some road projects and side stuff? I know it's a little different than if you go to Palau. There's a lot less red tape that you have to go through to go out and support something like that. Over here, it's a little bit harder because it's on U.S. soil. Is that right?
It is, and there's limits to what the Department of War oftentimes is the first ones there. The most number of people in that room are from our department, and we also often have the biggest checkbook. So people sometimes it's hard to realize that there are limits to where we can spend that money. But the advantage for us is that we're well postured to be out here, develop the relationships. Once we understand the potential for something, to work back in DC within the interagency, if there's a pilot, if there's a partnership, if there's a grant, if there's something else we can do that's a little bit outside the normal, to be able to find those interagency partners to be able to help with the infrastructure requirements that are manifest here in CNMI.
Great. Sir, one of the things I know our governor, I think he wrote a letter asking for a little extension for the EIS. Is that moving forward? Is that approved?
I'm not sure exactly where the EIS letter is right now. I think that, in listening to some of the numbers that were in the room, I think everyone has confidence that we're going to be able to stay on track to get that EIS done. And I think that just the sheer number of comments that we had on the first draft that came out to where we are now, it's amazing to watch the progress the team has had. And so I think we're really, really close. And so our hope is that we'll be able to work. And at the end of the day, what we don't want to do is over-pressurize or do the EIS in a way that CNMI leadership doesn't feel like their voice was heard. But I think we're close to being able to resolve everything there.
We'll try to get you out in like 2 more questions.
That's good.
One of the things that folks have noticed a lot, you mentioned about the changing posture and everything, but people have noticed that we don't have those same ships that we used to have out there, the MIPS Round 3 folks. And all that. Are we ever going to see those guys again?
Yeah, I'll be as honest as I can. I don't know, but it's one of the questions I've been asking, and I wrote it. I didn't write it down, but it was close to, because I need to follow up with my team. What we want to do is just have a steady, stable presence of ships that are here, and so I've got a couple questions to ask. Everything from just normal port visits to other things. I don't know the answer for that yet, but it's one of the questions that I'm asking.
All right, sir. So I know you're a football guy.
Yeah.
We talked about it really briefly
just for a second.
Before. But when you were at Naval Academy, you were coaching over there too?
Yeah, I was a guy that got hurt trying to play, and those that can't play coach, and so I didn't get a whole lot of playing time, but enjoyed 1 year of coaching. Almost became a college football coach, but chose the Navy, so it worked out, I guess.
It definitely worked out. Any similarities trying to coach a 53-man squad and or more in college?
Yeah.
Versus trying to run a team of folks with different bases and everything out here?
That's my favorite question of the day. There are a lot of similarities, and I think, I go back. I always remember one of my favorite moments of coaching was a guy that was undersized but had great intent, and it was working with him to figure out how to bring out the best in him so that he could play at the level he wanted to play. And I'll never forget the practice where we got him lined up against one of the starters, and he was able to, offensive line, so we stoned the starter off, and the look in his eyes and the great satisfaction is something I still get tingles today. And so I think a lot of the teamwork that you do here is recognize that each member of your team's a little bit different. Each has different levels of care, each has different levels of talent. And so how you work with that team to be able to focus them on mission, create a sense of positivity, and be able to get the best out of each and every person that works for you is what you do. It doesn't matter if it's on the football field or in a Navy room. So thanks.
Thanks, sir. All right, real quick, before we get out of here then, any thoughts on who you think is going to make it for the Super Bowl this year?
Well, I think it's clear. I mean, I would promise you a follow-up interview if it's the Bills and the Seahawks. I think you guys are tracking a little bit better than we are, but after last week's blowout of New Orleans, it's interesting. The team had to clear my schedule because tomorrow, 10:15, Amazon Prime, the Seahawks are playing the Cardinals, and I might be focused on that more than work.
Sir, thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome. It's great to meet you.
Hopefully we get to see you when you come back.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks. This was great.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.